Yeah, warm hello to all of you. I'm really happy to be here. I'm going to talk a little bit about community leadership in Extinction Rebellion today. A little disclaimer. As a movement in Extinction Rebellion, we do not have typically leaders. So I'm standing here today on a personal level and speaking from my personal experiences, my personal ideas and experience on community building within Extinction Rebellion. And before I start, I definitely want to give some credit to Professor Danny Burns and Cordula Ryman for their ideas on movement building, because they've really helped me shape this speech and also shape my ideas the way I try to practice servant leadership within Extinction Rebellion. Now to start off, how many of you here have heard of Extinction Rebellion? The UK government for sure? Okay. Now, Extinction Rebellion is a climate activist movement engaging in non-violent civil disobedience. Non-violent civil disobedience meaning that we're willing to break the law to cause disruption, but do so non-violently and preferably with a loving smile on our faces. Now, Extinction Rebellion exists because we are facing an unprecedented global crisis. Life on Earth is in crisis. Scientists agree we have entered a period of abrupt climate breakdown. We are in the midst of a mass extinction of our own making. That's some pretty heavy stuff. But speaking for the movement as a whole, we demand three things from governments from the world. The first thing is that they tell the truth about the climate emergency we're all in. The second is that they act now to halt biodiversity loss and greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2025. And the third is that they deal with this by decisions made in citizens' assemblies on climate and ecological justice to then be implemented by these respective governments. Basically, we're saying we're not wiser than all of humanity. I'm not going to talk more about this now, but if you're interested in this, please come talk to me or Sarah over there, because we'll be around here the entire day. I'm going further, making a clear distinction about Extinction Rebellion being a movement as opposed to an organization is quite important. Because while it's possible to build activism in an organization with a centralized strategy, this wouldn't work in a movement. To challenge the toxic system we are in with a shared vision of change, we set our goals to what's necessary, and we think that's mobilizing 3.5% of the population. Now, that's a lot of people. And I wrote it yesterday. So that's a lot of people, 3.5%. And to keep those people involved in the movement, they need to do what they believe in. Because if our strategy only deviates a little bit from what they believe, those people will tend to lose energy and drop away from the movement. And therefore, creating a movement around a centralized strategy wouldn't work. Which is one of the reasons why we are based on autonomy and decentralization. Now, we are also aiming to be radically inclusive, meaning that we welcome everyone and every part of everyone. So literally everyone, right to left, up to down, can join Extinction Rebellion, as long as they agree with our demands and principles. Now, mitigating for power, welcoming everybody, and organizing based on decentralization and autonomy is quite different from the societal systems that have raised us and nurtured us. Generally, people in our society have to be asked, tested, or given permission to start a project, join working groups, or generally get anything done. I mean, at work we see this with our bosses, children have to ask their parents, citizens their municipalities, schools tell their students what to do, and the list goes on and on and on. And this essentially brings me also to one of the first problems I see within Extinction Rebellion. Because people in the movement are undergoing a process of de-learning. On the one side, this happens by refraining from blaming and shaming and telling people in the movement what they can and can't do. But more so I see this is that they don't have to ask anybody to start organizing, as long as it's within the bounds of our principles and demands. And we facilitate this process with various things, such as a self-organizing system that tries to balance the need for rapid action and reflecting and learning. But coming from hierarchical societies, rethinking, reliving, and de-learning this way of organizing is quite a challenge. In many ways, we need to foster a deep trust and a tangible sense of community solidarity that is best built over time to face-to-face interaction. I mean, all the information and tools we have over social media can perhaps inspire rebellion, but they cannot sustain or create this tangible sense of community solidarity. And this becomes even more evident when analyzing the questions people have to ask themselves when joining the movement. I mean, inviting people to engage in non-violent civil disobedience is not an easy thing to do. If you haven't taken direct action before and you face arrest, fines, negative reactions from the local government, you need to feel that you are among people who are organized and who know their shit, who know what they're doing. In my view, we are therefore first and foremost engaged in a social and cultural rebellion, more than a systemic one, first. And this means that primarily we have to create a regenerative culture, which is healthy, resilient, and adaptable. And as activists, our role in this is more akin to planting seeds and planting trees than giving out orders. Because the biggest loss happens when people burn out and leave the movement because they can't regenerate within. And so when we're planting these seeds, what we can do as servant leaders or community leaders is making sure the earth is fertile, that there's enough water, that the trees are sheltered enough to grow, and that there are bees to pollinate them. Then if we do this, then those seeds can spread, and then hopefully, and we won't know exactly when and where. And this garden, which is our ecological struggle, has been cultivated long before we lived, and will be cultivated long after we move on. And therefore I also think that one of the key things is fostering this long breath within the movement.